Welcome. My name is Earl Amin, and you're listening to the 2020 Foresight Podcast, where CEOs, presidents, and leaders of small to global companies share their insights. It is 6 questions in 9 minutes because leadership knows how to listen and be concise. So let's get to it. First of all, welcome. And in just a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Earl. My name is Ben Wiant, and I've had a very diverse career. Most recently, I spent 6 years as a recruiter, placing mid to senior level professionals across all industries and role types. And during that time, I realized that what I'm truly passionate about and talented at is helping job seekers be the best candidates that they can be. So I started my own business in June of 2020, and I am now a career transition consultant. I spend my days helping my clients define, own, and confidently communicate their professional value through their resumes, LinkedIn profiles, strategic networking conversations, and job interviews.
Outstanding. So what's the best thing about being the CEO of your company?
Well, given that I am both the CEO of my business and a solopreneur, I am solely responsible for every win as well as every failure in my business. I get to call the shots, and I'm responsible for the outcomes of each of those calls. I also love being able to pivot, experiment, and make changes without having to worry about the impact that those decisions might have on other people. Plus, I get to build systems, processes, and products, and then use them immediately to see what works and what doesn't.
Outstanding. Now, I'm sure in your career path, you've heard from other leaders, I have, that leading a team is its own particular challenge, but also being able to see the road ahead can be a real challenge. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, when I started my business, I was very intentional about never having a team and scaling the business over time through systems, offerings, and technology, and not through people. I've been a manager and a leader in the past, and while I enjoy that part of the work, that's not what I wanted to do in my own business. I'm also fortunate in that I operate in a relatively stable niche in the employment space. People will always need the support to get hired, and economic downtimes often end up good times for companies in the career transition space. So the future looks bright from my perspective.
Indeed, it does. Now, out of that experience and what you just shared, what key piece of insight do you want to share with and for the benefit of other CEOs?
Most importantly, be clear about what your company is truly expert at delivering and get even better at doing that. It's what Jim Collins calls the hedgehog concept in his book, Good to Great. Don't spread yourself too thin or try to be everything to everyone. Stay focused and don't chase shiny objects. It's easy to take on new ideas, build out new products, launch a new product or initiative, or diversify in a new market. But it's been proven time and time again that the riches are in the niches. Build a story around your expertise and stay true to that narrative, and you'll avoid confusing your employees. And more importantly, you'll avoid confusing your customers. And as your company grows, keep your individual focus narrow and elevate and delegate your team. Empower your team to do great work and get out of their way. In my case, I outsource functions that I'm not able to do expertly, and this keeps me focused on what I do well and removes any noise from the business. And because I'm a huge culture geek, I'll add this. Be intentional about your company culture. It will evolve regardless of whether you guide and nurture it, and it may become something very different than you envisioned, and it can put you in a bad spot if things go sideways.
Indeed, indeed. Now, in your career journey, what other successful CEOs like yourself would you like to acknowledge or give a shout out to and should be on my podcast?
Earl, you have got to talk to Keith Langbo at Celica. That's the boutique talent acquisition firm that I worked at prior to starting my own business. Keith co-created the company and its culture with his leadership team, of which I was a member for all those years. It was and is a special kind of company. It is very, truly unique.
Outstanding. We received that. Thank you. Now for the final question, Ben, how do you celebrate a win?
If it's a closed deal, I get to work on delivering a high quality service. If it's a client success, I give them praise and support and then move on to the next win. I do my best to keep the win-lose roller coaster as even as possible to keep my emotions in check.
All right. Very good. Ben, it's been a pleasure having you on today. How can people find you?
Best way to find me is on LinkedIn. That's where I run my business. I'm the only Ben Wiant on LinkedIn, other than my father, who's retired. So you'll find me there. I'm a career transition consultant with that name.
Outstanding. This is Earl Amin with the 2024 Side Podcast. For more insights, go to LinkedIn and search for The Gray Owl Company. Ben, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Earl. Appreciate it.
From one dynamic CEO to another, from one impactful company to another, up next is an equally great leader worthy to be listened to. First of all, welcome, and in just a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Earl. My name is Frank Schwartz. I'm the president of G3L Leadership, which is a leadership development company. And basically, we focus very much on helping leaders to find their personal purpose and to craft their unique personal mission. Their life mission is what we call it, by doing what we call the grueling work. And as we know, that can often be a tough deal, right? To get from where you are to where you're focused deeply on your purpose and your unique ability.
Indeed. Very good. Well, tell me, what's the best thing about being the president of your company and doing what you do?
I mean, clearly it's this glorious corner office that you.
Yes.
I think that, we hear it and sometimes it can almost become trite, Earl, when we say, oh, the best thing about leading is, being of service and that sort of thing. And I think that that's probably true of many leaders. I think that my favorite thing of being the leader of this company, though, has been truly to take some time and opportunity to provide space for those who work with me and who I work for to develop themselves outside of the actual work that we do, right? So to help them to find places even outside of work, outside of family or whatever it might be, and provide them opportunities to develop themselves. Because I'm finding that most often if they're connecting to personal purpose and they're helping, I'm helping them to discover their life mission, then we get a lot better work done at the office as well.
Outstanding. Very good. I get that. Now, I'm sure dealing with leaders such as you do, I've certainly heard it, that leading a team and being able to see that road ahead can be a challenge. What are your thoughts?
We have kind of a phrase that we use a lot, and we say, leadership only ever gets about 43 feet of good road ahead of everybody else, right? So you're kind of always carving and sort of hacking the branches away, and so it can be challenging in that way, and sometimes it's super challenging to figure out what that next 43 feet ought to look like. And obviously you have, situations where depending on obviously the size of your teams and things like that, different personalities and different needs. And, this guy doesn't necessarily get along with this guy or this woman doesn't like that one, whatever it might be. And so I think those are the challenges most of the time are people challenges, generally speaking. Tactical challenges are pretty simple to solve, for the most part. There's sometimes some operational challenges, but you can usually work through those kinds of things. But those big transformational challenges where you find that the more you do of one thing, the less you get of another. There's these kind of internal competing values that we would have that those are the human problems. And those are usually the toughest ones.
Yeah, indeed. So what then particular insight do you want to share with and for the benefit of those other leaders? Something juicy.
Wow. That's Ruth's Chris. That's go to that's juicy, right? I think that probably depends on, your years of service, if you will, and the size of your organization and, all those kinds of things. But I think some universal truths that I've discovered myself just in my own personal life, but also working with leaders, across the country. Probably the best piece of advice that I can give is it's not about you. It's never about you. And every time that you will make it about yourself, you will jeopardize the success of your team and the success of your mission. That's probably the main thing.
Spot on, good sir. You are spot on.
That's a hard one though, isn't it?
It's amazingly hard.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, spot on.
It is truth. Yeah.
So what other successful CEOs, leaders like yourself have you encountered that you'd like to here and now acknowledge and should be on my podcast? Give us a shout out.
Yeah, because you had asked me, you sent that question ahead of time, so I've been kind of thinking about who ought to be on here. And there's a guy that I know. His name is Jason Burbage, and he's president of something called National Land Realty, and they broker land for big developers and things like that. So they sell and trade and all that kind of land everywhere across the country. And he is a particularly humble and kind man who really seeks to develop the people that he's around, and I think really understands leadership in a very particular way. And just as a side note, Jason was born without hands, and has lived his whole life that way. And I think his unique perspective on life and on people and that sort of thing, I think would be probably pretty interesting to have.
I think I might agree with you. Thank you for that. Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, now for the final question. So, Frank, how do you celebrate a win?
This is something that I have to rely on the people that I work with a lot to do and help me to do. I don't know if this is true across CEOs. I see it a fair amount, not always. But sometimes it's tough for us to remember to celebrate the win. And we kind of just take it in stride and we're like, good, won. Awesome. What's next? And just keep driving and keep moving. And so I've been very blessed. I've got a couple people that, that work here that have kind of, been here a long time and that, I've worked with over many years who kind of help remind me. And it could be anything. I mean, it's usually pretty, something pretty small, take the team out to lunch or, just in the morning meeting, just acknowledge it.
Sure.
We don't have to give, sort of the large corporate, we don't have to give, paperweights or,
big trophies,
right. Company bucks or whatever it is. Like, nobody really cares about that stuff. Right. Just usually a simple, deep and heartfelt appreciation goes probably the furthest of anything that I've discovered. And I think that's the other trick though, is remembering to do it, remembering what a win looks like, and then forcing yourself to do that, to acknowledge it. Yeah.
Well done. Frank, it's been a pleasure having you on. How can people find you?
Oh, absolutely. Probably the easiest place to find me is you can email me at frank@g3l.com. I'm on LinkedIn, LinkedIn, / Frank Schwartz or whatever it is. But you can find me there and I tweet a fair amount as well. But those are probably the two best places to locate me.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And so we shall. This is Earl Amin with the 2024 Sight Podcast. For more insights, go to LinkedIn and search for The Gray Owl Company. Frank, thank you very much.
Thank you, Earl.
Thank you for listening to the 2024 Sight Podcast, where CEOs share who they are and what they do in the world that makes a difference. For more entrepreneurial and life-changing insights, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes accounts. All of the links are available below. See you in the next episode.